AskReddit by Newbidoob. What activities do moderately rich people, few million, take their kids to do at the weekend? By water or to quiet places. In their own pool, or at a country club, or on the water in a boat, not poor edited, golfing, hiking etc. There is a big emphasis on being in uncrowded locations, away from standing in line, where you have some privacy from people with bad behavior, belligerent drunk, poorly mannered children, people who don't respect quiet or personal space, people who are blatantly sick, coughing, contagious, who should have stayed home etc. It sounds snobby, but the small percent of people who take their kid to a Chuck E. Cheese for example, let their kid with his unchanged diaper go into the ball pit and mess it up and then leave with no personal responsibility, ruin lots of public places for everyone. It's not avoiding the general public, it's avoiding a place that won't or can't police the 0.5% of people with terrible behavior. Here in California many beaches and trails are free, so it's not something you have to be rich to do. 33-year-old moderately rich person here. We take our kid to the science museum or the park. The main thing, we spend somewhat extravagantly on our vacations. Thanks. Not moderately rich but not poor either, and realized earlier that I never see the signs of wealth. For example, nice cars in car park or expensive clothes, where we take our kids at the weekend. Got me wondering where the better off people are spending their weekends. A trend I've seen is moderately rich people getting their kids into niche sports to help them get into college. Sports like fencing, rowing, lacrosse, equestrian sports, etc. A lot of Ivy League colleges are more likely to accept rich people due to the extracurriculars they give priority to. I went on overseas trips to build schools in Nigeria, and I have a dressage horse is more likely to get accepted than I volunteered at the soup kitchen and I had a summer job. The same things most people take their kids to. They just don't look and act like you are imagining they do. Thank you for this. These all seem like what people not in this demographic imagine, not what may actually be. Boating on nice weekends and skiing in winter. My parents used to take us skiing every winter, but we were far from rich. We randomly stopped when I was 18 and I never knew why. I guess I just assumed my parents got bored of it, so it never occurred to me to ask them. However, recently my mom told me because she was a healthcare worker, our province offered a tax break on recreational activities for kids between 5 or 6 and 18. Apparently in the 90s kids were spending too much time glued to screens and the government was noticing poor eyesight, posture and obesity were on the rise. They started all these programs to encourage families to enroll their children in sports and gave tax breaks to parents who did. The deal with the local ski hill was unique to nursing staff in BC, but apparently my mom got reimbursed for my brothers and my ski lessons and lift passes for a few years there. It explains why the annual ski vacation stopped abruptly when I turned 18. A few million probably describes a lot of people in standard suburbs: doctors, lawyers, tech people. We do pretty standard things like park errands, birthday parties, gymnastics. That level of wealth isn't super obvious. Yes, appreciate that a few mil in Texas or Newcastle is a bit different to a few mil in Nick or London. Hard to describe moderately rich, but I think most people have got it. I had friends in that category. They did stuff with everyone else. They weren't special. They'd play on local sports teams. We'd hang out by the one store in town, etc. Then around supper time their mum would come in the Hummer H2 that their father insisted she drive. My friends would say goodbye, and they'd go off to their cabin on the river to eat expensive organic meat on sourdough buns while watching the sunset. Few million income or net worth. Pretty big difference, I think. We're the latter, 2M net worth. We usually go paddleboarding or F-oiling on Saturday morning. Our kid goes to work. When he gets home we go out for dinner together. Last night we all went to a comedy show together at a small local theater. Yeah, I replied to another poster who said the same. More about a mix of cash flow and net worth. I think it's different by place too. I think a few mil in the UK is different from a few mil in the US too. Same as everyone else. And X200B. Having a net worth of a few million, or making a few million a year? Having a net worth of a few million is comfortable upper middle. Still working the grind but with better pay than most. Not having to worry as much about something happening, but not having enough to live extravagantly. Most people I know in this bracket, their money is tied to their property. Having enough to buy a boat or second home with a bit of a stretch. Net worth plus decent cash flow. Not so wealthy that they can head off on their super yacht and private jet. People probably on a few $100,000 a year rather than a few million a year. In the sports seasons, football and baseball, we were on whatever local field they were playing on. We vegged on weekends and got stuff done around the house or went up to our ranch. Might go out to eat on a Saturday night. They wanted to relax from school and we wanted to recharge from working all week. Despite being comfortable financially, we worked some pretty long hours much of the week to avoid needing to do so on weekends. The kids had school and practices that took a lot of time. Golfing. Was gonna say the same, lol. Classes, piano, ballet, martial arts, act. Boating. We aren't rich, but we have a boat. It is painful how much they can cost to maintain or fix. Especially living in cold climates where they need to be winterized. We say that boat stands for bust out another 1,000. I guess my parents are moderately rich by this criteria. A typical weekend would be synagogue Saturday morning, then come home and do a cheese and crackers spread for lunch, a few hours of yard work. My least favorite was cleaning the gutters. One of my parents would cook dinner, then we'd go for a nice walk around the neighborhood, then watch TV for an hour or two before bed. On Sunday we'd usually drive to a state park for a longer walk. Everyone naps when we get home, then either dinner at home or walk to a restaurant for dinner. Some weekends would also include a visit to the huge international market and lunch there. Most of our vacations were similarly babones, camping trips, canoe trips, etc. On road trips we always pre-packed sandwich supplies and split a 2-bed hotel room between the 4 of us. Funnily enough, I never really had any idea of my parents' finances growing up. We didn't do rich people stuff, never had a vacation home, never flew better than economy. They drove middle of the road Toyotas, and for a few years a PT Cruiser which my mom loved, always dressed pretty normally, etc. People don't get rich by spending. Equestrian activities. Riding lessons, dressage, show jumping, driving, trail riding. Most of the ones I know have their kids in boarding school so they don't have to deal with them. Normal shit for the most part. Maybe a weekend trip within their own country to a nearby destination. They may be rich but they still need to work, so no super long trips. Well organized and well funded competitive club sports leagues. The ones that require you to drive around the state and pay for your kid to travel. Parents owned a fairly successful business and took home low mid-6 figures annually. When my middle school aged brother showed talent for pitching a baseball and expressed desire to play in college, he never played in a weekend recreational league again. This sounds like fishing for a kidnapping spot. You get dragged around a lot to look at new lighting fixtures. The vacations are pretty great though. You typically don't get rich by spending a lot of money. We always went to the country club. My dad's side of the fam are rich. Shopping, hairdresser, fancy restaurants. They are good people though, mostly Sergio's doctor investors. They all have good hearts, and are not stuck up. Snowboarding? Yes, or skiing. Spent a lot of years taking my kids to martial arts tournaments where they competed. Also, would drop them at the bus station for a ride with friends to the local ski area. Toss in trips to the lake house. I used to ride sometimes at a polo club, visit stately homes, family dinner every Sunday, visit the beach, see family, compete in sports.